Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell here with attorney Stephen Jessup, and today we're going to discuss New York Life disability insurance appeals. And Stephen, back in December of 2019, New York Life purchased Cigna's group life and disability insurance division for approximately $6.3 billion. And I remember when we saw the press release come out that we were both we were all shocked in the office because New York Life has basically been an individual disability insurance company, even though they offer like group policies to like the American Bar Association and things like that. They're not really experienced in the group ERISA disability world like Cigna, who was top 3 biggest in the country. But the only thing we do know still as we're doing this video in September of 2020 is that from press releases, they said that they're going to keep all of the Cigna employees, which essentially means that the Cigna people are going to come over to New York Life and become New York Life employees. But for people watching this video and subsequent to, because they said by the third quarter of 2020 they would assimilate into New York Life, people are going to start to see now correspondence coming to them from New York Life, and future denial letters are going to say New York Life, even though they initially had a Cigna policy. So I want this video to talk about kind of a guide as to how to properly submit a New York Life disability appeal. And obviously we're giving our suggestive tips here, but the facts and circumstances are different for every single case. The policy's different, the medical condition's different, the occupation's different. So we can't give the exact what to do exactly because there's so much to it. But I want people to understand why there's so much to this. So when you get an appeal, when you're being involved in an appeal, what's the first thing you do to facilitate submitting an appeal?
I mean, the first thing you have to do is get a copy of the claim file. I mean, generally speaking, when someone contacts us and the claim has been denied, we always get a copy of the denial letter, the policy if they have it, and then we have a consultation based on that. But if we are retained, first and foremost, first thing is getting a copy of the administrative record. Under the law, New York Life is going to have a duty to provide you, a copy of that. And that's going to be anything that you had submitted in furtherance of your claim or Cigna at the time, and now New York Life may have created as part of its review. Because generally speaking, in a denial letter, they're going to discuss, they had doctors review the case and what their opinions were, if there was vocational analysis done, if there was video surveillance done. All these different aspects of what they used in this letter to justify the denial is going to be in the claim file. So getting that claim file is going to give you all the information that you need to really hone in on and focus on, combating, replying to, or providing additional information to override these opinions of New York Life's doctors. So that's the first thing that we're going to do proactively when it comes to contact with the insurance company. And generally speaking, during that time too, we're also in the process of gathering all of the medical records from the client so we can start our own independent review of that to determine what needs to be done to bolster this claim. Like you had said, every single disability claim we have is going to have its own nuances, from what your condition is, what the limitations your doctors are putting on, what the occupation was, or based on if it's in any occupation, these various factors that we need to kind of assess to determine what are the steps going to need to be taken to try to build up enough proof to support that you are entitled to disability. One thing I think we'll be waiting to see with this is New York Life going to keep a lot of the same protocol that Cigna did, specifically, in this point with voluntary appeals. Under ERISA, you have a mandatory, one level of administrative appeal that you have to go through with Cigna, or New York Life in this instance, before you're allowed to file a lawsuit. Now, Cigna used to allow a voluntary level of appeal, so if your first was denied, you could voluntarily submit a second one. They don't have to allow that, so I think it'll be interesting to see if New York Life's going to keep that as well, or if they are going to just make it one level of appeal prior to bringing a lawsuit, which in that case, the odds are that much more, the stakes are that much more increased during that first appeal process.
So I know when I get a claim file, and usually it depends how long, if the person has ever been approved or if they were on for years. We have people on for 15 years, they get denied. So claim files run from a minimum of 500 pages to thousands and thousands of pages. what are the key documents that you are looking for in a claim file when you finally sit down and go through this monster documentation?
Yeah, so I'll get to that. But when you sit with claim files and the size of them, one thing I hope, and if maybe someone from New York Life is reviewing this or sees this video, Cigna is the king of putting your whole file in a box and mailing it to you. We get calls from people like, hey, they sent me my whole claim file. It's across 2 boxes. I'm trying to find information, where most carriers will now put it on a disk or a thumb drive, so you can simply download it. It's a hell of a lot easier to navigate and find the information you're looking for. Now, when I'm going through a claim file, the first things I am going to be looking for are anything that's referenced in the denial letter. Now, if someone's been on claim for multiple years, there's chances are that there were prior medical reviews, all that stuff. I will look for that. That is going to be part of the review, but it's always the most recent in time information that was used to deny your claim I'm going to be looking for. Independent peer review reports, so when they send your file out to one of these medical review companies who then puts a doctor on it to do a review and analysis and give an opinion, looking for those. Any vocational reviews that were done, if independent medical evaluations were done, copies of those reports, any type of investigative stuff, whether it be video surveillance or looking into your social media accounts, things like that. Those are the things that I'm initially looking for to pull out, because that's going to be the information that you want to address, the most thoroughly in an appeal.
So a lot of the stuff you said is tremendously important in terms of what did Cigna look at in terms of determining to support their denial, and then also you're looking for what documentation did the claimant submit. Mm-hmm. But another big thing that I look for, because look, we want to win every appeal, no doubt. But you also have to look at it from the perspective of this arbitrary and capricious standard of review that applies in whether or not did they act reasonably. Now, at the stage that we submit an appeal, it's not a determination as to whether or not they acted reasonably or not for the next person who's going to review it. Because the one thing we didn't mention is that once you submit this appeal, the person who's going to review the claim is supposed to have absolutely nothing to do with the person before. It's this quasi so-and-so Chinese wall, so that you're supposed to get this fully independent look at the appeal, and the next person who looks at it and the doctors who look at it are supposed to be totally different. But I really like to dig into the notes from the claim rep, also known as the SOAP notes, and whether it's usually, it's not just one person, it's the claim person, it's the nurse, it's the doctor, it's the manager, it's the director. And you start to see the methodology. Now, we're looking at it from having looked at thousands of claims. So we know exactly what they were doing or what they were not doing. And you can often find 1 or 2 nuggets of information in there about the manner in which they looked at the claim, or how they reviewed video surveillance, or how they reviewed another doctor's thing. And you can start to hold them to that particular theme of what they might have thought was missing, or why they took an interpretation that the person wasn't denied. So, I'm talking in general, but you start to be able to find this little thing, and it's literally like a needle in a haystack, because you have thousands of pages and you're looking for 1 or 2 important things.
Yeah, you can find a note entry where it kind of sets the stage as to what the claims person may have thought they saw that then led them down a track of trying to deny. Maybe they saw something in a social media review search, someone on vacation or posting a picture out and about. And sometimes you can see that from that moment of discovering that, that's when all of a sudden they're sending it out for, medical reviews and all this other stuff. So there are nuggets hidden in there. And anyone who's looked through those things, you find that a lot of times they're duplicitous. They don't necessarily follow any discernible order. I'm sure to the people who work there it makes sense, but it's a lot of convoluted, a lot of times repetitive information put throughout there. So you really do have to dig. It's not uncommon that for Cigna, and now it'll be New York Life, to send you a claim file. It has duplicates of a lot of information. So they don't make it easy. They say, hey, we have to turn it over, but we're not going to make it easy for you to find what you're looking for.
And then you'll often find, while they're a multi-billion-dollar company, one person early on in the claim said one thing. It may have been wrong. He put it down in the file on paper. No one goes back to look at hundreds and hundreds of pages. So what they do is they all rubber stamp that one finding, like a vocational assessment they may do about the occupational duties. They take it as if that's what it is. They don't put their own independent thought process into it. And it's a snowball effect because everybody just assumes that's right and that's how it goes. Now, in terms of submitting the appeal, how important is the additional medical support going to be that a claimant must submit on an appeal?
Quite honestly, for purposes of the appeal, it's going to be the most important thing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, because up until the point of the submission of the appeal, your medical records, regardless of how strong they actually are, the insurance company's already looked at it and said, not good enough. We think you aren't disabled under the policy. So now the new information really needs to double down on what you had before, bolster it, or sometimes to refute, because we've seen it where, a person's own doctor will submit something that says that, they can work or they're not putting any further restrictions. So this new information really has to be strong and overwhelming to basically have, Cigna, New York Life, we use them interchangeably for this one, to go back and say, we got that wrong. So it's really, really important that that information you're going to submit is going to be very thorough, very supportive. If it's physical conditions, if you're looking at functional capacity evaluations, neuropsychological, if there's cognitive issues, but you need to really hit them with as much information as you can so that when it does go to the appeals department, like you said, it's a brand new person who hasn't had a review of it, and anyone who's going to look at it from a medical perspective, again, they've never looked at your file before, you want to impress upon them the severity of restrictions and limitations to kind of get them, in my opinion, to side with you. So as they're reviewing what you're submitting, they're looking at that and they get a flavor of, all right, there's a lot of stuff going on here, so that anything they may look at that Cigna had done previously, they don't give it as much weight. So your medical is really where your appeal is going to, succeed or fail.
And they give you 6 months to submit an appeal. And a lot of people go, well, if I'm just getting another review, I should just right away respond to this letter and say, please have it reviewed again. Like as if you go to a restaurant, you're not happy with your dish, so you say, call over the manager. Mm-hmm. But it's not like that, because you need to take a totally different angle. Because what you did initially, if it was denied, if you were to just say, go ahead and review it again with somebody else, you got a 1 in 10,000 chance of that person saying, oh no, they did it wrong. So one of the biggest things that we do in terms of medical support may not be the person going for a new test or another visit with the doctor, but the custom attending physician statements that we've been drafting for years, which really go into great detail of making the doctor understand what's going on with the claim, because doctors don't really do disability claims. Mm-hmm. And it's very hard for a claimant who's not represented and doesn't really know what they need to present to the disability company to approach the doctor. So when you have an attorney representing you, you're able to go into the doctor and say, look, I hired a professional who does this all the time. They suggested that this is the information I need to present to the insurance company. Can you complete this form that talks about what my occupational duties are, what's wrong with me, and provides further detail than just you as a doctor writing a letter saying that so-and-so shouldn't sit for this long, stand for that long, or whatever. There's a lot more specific detail that has to go into that. And we know from having doing this what the insurance company wants to see, and more importantly, how their hired gun doctor is going to look at it and make it in such a way that their hired doctor is going to have a hard time rebutting what another medical professional is going to say, to the point where if we were to lose the appeal, that a judge who looks at this says, I don't see how one doctor could possibly find differently than the other doctor. And I thereby find that the insurance company's doctor acted unreasonably. And you have to set it up so that no reasonable person could look at this and disagree with your own doctors or the other doctors, like you mentioned, Jessup, a functional capacity exam, a neuropsych exam, all the other types of additional medical evidence that could possibly be obtained to support your claim. Now, the last thing, talk about why we have other videos that we've done about what to do if you lose your appeal and being presented. And you mentioned earlier a claim file and an administrative record. Mm-hmm. But an administrative record doesn't really become an administrative record until it's all done, meaning the final decision comes. Why is it so important to have what I call an amazing administrative record and get everything under the sun into that administrative record?
Yeah, and this feeds back into the point you were making before about, you don't want to rush an appeal, because after a final denial of benefits. So if you rush your appeal, you say, hey, I want you to, I'm appealing, I want you to review it, and you're not providing that additional information, Cigna or New York Life, they take it, they get doctors to kind of rubber stamp the prior reviews, the claim is denied. If at that point your only option is to bring a lawsuit, once there's a final denial of benefits, no new information is allowed to come into your file. So you don't get the opportunity to say, well, I wanted to submit all of this stuff, or, how many times have you seen it where after a final denial of benefits, someone then gets awarded Social Security? Well, that's great for them, but that's not something a judge is going to be able to consider. So once the claim is done, there's no more appeals. Your only option is to bring a lawsuit. Now you have your administrative record. And when you file your lawsuit, you're going to go into federal court. You don't have the right to a jury trial. You don't get to testify. Your doctors aren't going to testify. And that federal judge is going to look at only the administrative record. So that's what used to be your claim file, everything since the beginning to that final denial. And that judge is going to look at only that small snippet in time to make the determination. And like you said, if this is under what we know as an arbitrary and capricious standard of review, one, the judge is going to look inside that administrative record and say, one, is this person disabled? If no, the case is done there. But more commonly, you'll see judges say, yes, I find that there's enough evidence to support disability. And then it goes to that second step. Did they act arbitrary and capricious? Did they not have a reasonable basis to deny the claim? And if a judge finds that there was a reasonable basis, then they have to uphold the denial of benefits. So that administrative record is the only thing a judge is going to look at. And that's why in submitting your appeal, you want to have as much as you possibly can, because you're not going to get to argue to a judge later, so I had this and they didn't review that. It had to be in the context of that administrative review process. And a lot of people too, they think when it comes to insurance companies that, you file lawsuits and that you're going to win and you're going to have these jury trials, or the insurance company is just going to, back down and throw money at you. Not in this area of the law. This area of the law is very favorable to the insurance industry. This is worth a lot of money. By the $6.3 billion New York Life spent to get into the group disability arena, this is obviously a high profit area for these insurance companies, and they know with the law on their side that they can be very aggressive with their denials and in court. So with everything stacked up against you, you really, especially in this administrative appeal process, this is everything you want to potentially argue to a judge if needs be. So you can't rush this process. 180 days is a lot of time when you don't have money coming in, but 6 months compared to 5, 10, 15, 20 years of potential benefits down the road, it's a small amount of time to really get your ducks in a row.
So, we really only scratched the surface on how to file an appeal for your Cigna claim. And we have tons of videos on our website, more about Cigna. If you search Cigna on our website, you'll see questions and answers, you'll see reviews, you'll see all kinds of articles that we've written about other lawsuits, which is great because it educates you about how the courts are interpreting Cigna suits. And we put them both in there, some that have been won and some that have been lost. And we also talk about all the Cigna cases, New York Life, which was Cigna, cases that we've handled. So you get a flavor, and that education is important because you really need to know what to expect. You can never do this per se on your own and have the full gamut of, when I sit down and do an appeal, it's crazy. It's like flashbacks and millions of things going on in my mind about I've seen this case, I've seen that case, I've seen this scenario, I know they're going to do this. It's a chess match every which way. And every word that we write in the appeal, and we submit 25, 30 plus page appeals, every word is well thought out because the judge is going to look at it later on if we don't win, and we always go back to that. So you're always 5 steps ahead when you're writing this thing. So listen, if you have a claim with Cigna or New York Life, it's been denied, call Steven, call myself. We'll provide you with an immediate free consultation, as all we need is a copy of the denial letter. We may need the policy as well, but just to get started and let you know if we can help you, we can easily just take a look at the denial letter. We're available to help you anywhere in the country at this point, it's an administrative process. And if a lawsuit has to be filed, as Steve mentioned earlier, the lawsuits are filed in federal court, which we've filed them all over the country. So very easy for you to work with us. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. We'll be here when you need us, and we look forward to speaking with you in the future.